Here we go.
Ladies and gentlemen, back today, we're going to be talking about veganism. We've got questions we're going to be going over with each other. We want to get to the bottom of what it means to be vegan and what are the other people saying about vegans to try to make us sound insane. Today, Jake Ball, Plant Geezer Podcast, me, Chris Jeffries, Homeless Romantic Podcast. So I'll ask you the first question, and I want to see if you can nail this sucker in an answer. So there's a lot of talk going around. Is bringing up your child vegan, is that considered child abuse?
I had that. Funnily enough, I was out for a meal a few months ago, and someone said that. Do you think it's fair or is it abusive to bring your children up as a vegan? Um, Talking of bringing children up, it's actually strange how we can bring people up to be non-abusive, non-racist. I think it's more of a question: should we be bringing children up speciesist, if that's a word? Because we teach people all the time, whether you're black, whether you're white, whether you're Asian, whether you're Hispanic, we're all the same, we're all equal. Treat everyone with respect. But for some reason, when it comes to animals, it's okay to gas a pig, but it's not okay at all to tread on the foot of a dog or a cat. So we can get down the health path and say, it's healthier, or it's healthier for meat, or it's this or it's that. But in terms of just ethics, I think it's quite strange to bring your child up having conflicting beliefs when it comes to compassion and love. So absolutely not. It's more of a question: should we be bringing children up with conflicting beliefs? I think the health side isn't really a path to go down. I mean, I could say, oh, my friend's child is vegan, he's 3 years old, he's thriving. Some people could say he would be better with meat or whatever, but I think it's quite obvious now that you can be healthy whichever path you choose. Obviously, I'm biased towards the plants, but in terms of ethics, you can't bring your child up with conflicting beliefs. You can't bring your child up and be like, oh, don't be racist to the Chinese, but you can be racist to this ethnic group. You know what I mean? So, absolutely ridiculous. I've got nothing else to say on the topic.
Fully agree. Fully agree. That's the problem with the way we think. And at any age, I think you can be vegan. I've seen famous actor Joaquin Phoenix from the Joker. He was vegan since he was 3 years old. It can be done. It should be done, and it will be done here in the future.
Yeah, absolutely. Question
Go
for you
ahead.
guys.
Go ahead. Shoot.
I'm going to start with the most ridiculous one. We've heard it a million times, but I haven't actually heard your take on this. Excuse me. More field deaths, more wild deaths than in meat production. To put it simply, crop deaths, though.
Yeah. So this is this misconception that everybody has because Ted Nugent, okay, the famous right-wing rock star, deer hunter or whatever, went on the Joe Rogan program and said more deaths happen in vegan agriculture than they do in meat production. And this is wildly untrue. Um, and, we know this now because a study by the United Nations of Food and Agriculture Organizations came out and it said that animal agriculture is responsible for about 150 billion land mammals every year. But on the other hand, the production of plant-based foods kills way less. That's what they found. For example, the production of 1 kilogram of wheat flour kills around 0.04 animals. So that's not even a whole animal. That's not even half an animal. That's 0.04 animals. And compare that to the production of 1 kilogram's worth of beef, which kills around 60 animals. Now, in this study, they're probably taking into account the food that the cow is eating, the runoff from ranching and everything like this. And also, just we know now how inefficient beef really is from an energy standpoint. So it's completely false. The fields would be covered in blood if that were true, that vegan food produces more dead animals than actually physically, intentionally killing huge, large land mammals for meat. And another study published by the Journal of Nature found that, you know, if you go vegan, you can reduce your carbon footprint by up to like 50% because animal agriculture is such a major source of greenhouse gases. And so there's no argument here about the ethics for me, just is common sense.
Yeah, I think people forget that these animals eat, don't they? Um, I mean, I've got here that a cow can consume anywhere from 25 to 50 pounds of food per day, in comparison to a human who typically consumes 3 to 5 pounds per day. So even if it was 5 to 25, which is the lowest and the highest, that's 5 times the amount. So if you've got 80 million animals, is it 80? Sorry, 80 billion animals that get slaughtered every year, times five of the
That's,
amount of food the 8 billion. Oh man, there's no point even working it out because the numbers are just so drastic.
yeah. And so
Wow.
the other thing I wanted to say about the vegan food being killing more animals than the meat production it's so ludicrous because uh, we all eat the same food. Livestock eats the same crops that we could eat or that we do eat. And so saying that, well, when you grow your crops, you kill all these land squirrels and moles and voles and stuff like that. And it's like the food that we're giving to the meat, the livestock that we're raising to turn into meat, what do you think they eat? They're eating soybeans, grains. 70% of the soybeans in the world are grown for livestock, and only 7% of all soybean in the world is eaten by humans. 7%. It's amazing.
And of that 7%, a small percentage of that will be consumed by meat eaters anyway. So it's not the whole of the 7% that is consumed by vegans, because soy is in a lot of things. Again, people don't realize that they're eating soy all the time.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Meat eaters, most of them also eat bread. So there you go. So my question for you now, how do we cover this topic? Okay. A lot of people who aren't vegan will say, why do you eat fake meat if you hate meat so much? What do you say about it?
Oh, God. Listen, people smoke e-cigarettes. People drink 0% beer. People don't want to get rid of something. They want to get rid of the consequences, the nasty part. So, come on. You haven't got to eat. First of all, you haven't even got to eat them. So this is again a misconception in itself, that everyone eats the fake meat. Everyone eats the fake burgers, and not only that, we eat them every day. Apparently, enough to do us harm. Not many people eat that much, do they? Really? I mean, you've got the very unhealthy people who would be eating unhealthily anyway, whether it was meat, whether it was beyond burgers, whether it was fake sausage. It's irrelevant. But in terms of, why do we do it? Because we like the taste. We don't like the raping of an animal. We don't like the slitting of the throat of the animal. If soy and wheat and pea protein products came first and they tasted like they do in the form of a patty or a hot dog, and then someone started chopping up animals, little baby animals, and compressing them and mixing things in with them and making patties and burgers out of that, I think that would be more of an argument. Why are you copying the shape or the texture of my pea protein patty with chopped up flesh of a baby cow? I think that would be more of a debate. So, yeah, it's quite obvious, man. I smoke a vape because I don't want the the tar in my lungs. It's probably fucking me up anyway, but who cares? You know, it's January. I'm drinking 0% beers. It doesn't mean I dislike beer. It just means that I'm having a break from alcohol. So if I want a burger that tastes good, I don't even care what it tastes like. Do you know what I mean? I don't care whether it tastes like if it tastes good, I'm going to eat it. If it didn't harm an animal directly, all good. And that's all I've got to say.
Yeah. Yeah, I agree with you whole. And I would just add that people think that if you're vegan, you have to eat the fake meats, but you don't really have to eat the fake meats when all the smart vegans are really doing their own cooking and doing beans, tofu, lentils, legumes, nuts, grains, vegetables, fruits, boom. And you don't have to mess around with anything that's got a fake, label on it. But at the same time, the Beyond Burger was the methadone that got me off of meat and that showed me the light and showed me that I can actually totally enjoy life still while living on a plant-based vegan diet. So,
yeah. How often do you eat them? Just out of interest. How often will you go to a fake mock meat?
I bought some fake sausage last week and I was really disappointed. And I don't, the more time goes on, the less I really go out for the fake anything, because the process aspect of it also plays into the politics of it, where I think I don't want to be manipulated or led around or have somebody process my food in some weird way where I don't know quite what's in it. In fact, I used some cream, some Oatly, cream, I forget, oat milk, something or other. And it's just kind of bizarre. It's a bizarre concoction. Tastes good though. Gotta say.
Yeah. Yeah, it's the old mock meat thing. It's just like in people's heads that is all there is to eat. And like really it probably makes up 5% of my diet, if that. I mean, Monday to Friday is a no-go. Saturday, Sunday, I will eat this and that, you know what I mean? I will venture out, but I just don't understand why the first thing people say is, oh, all your food's got chemicals in, or why are you eating it if you hate meat so much? And I'll give it up forever if you want. Do you know what I mean? If you want me to give it up, I will. Like it's not really an issue. Do you know what I mean? So it's quite strange. If someone was like, "Oh, I love meat," I wouldn't just turn around and say, "Why are you eating frozen, packaged ribs?" You know what I mean? I don't know what they're eating. They could be eating organic chicken breast with no seasoning. I don't know. So to just assume that people are eating these things is a little bit strange, especially when you're on a whole food plant-based diet, obviously. So
you want to avoid that. Yeah. That's all I got to say about that. All right, ask me a question.
Chris, your next question is one that I saw yesterday, actually. What will indigenous communities do that survive off meat if meat was to be eradicated and a plant-based diet was pushed?
Yeah, and I've talked about this already with some other people. So the idea is, well, if you're vegan, if you want the whole world to go vegan, what are the indigenous communities supposed to do? And aren't you being racist against the indigenous communities? Well, in reality, most of the indigenous communities in the world are already practicing plant-based diets, whether because that was their staple or just, that's what they started to do because of climate change. You have the Kuna people of Panama who have traditionally practiced in primarily plant-based diets. They eat, cassava, sweet potatoes, yams, bananas, and other fruits. They also hunted for wild game and fished in their coastal waters. But in recent years, there's increasing pressures from climate change, deforestation. It's really disrupted their food sources. And now they're starting to explore vegan and plant-based diets. And I'm assuming they're going to be mostly, whole food plant-based diets, not necessarily processed stuff. You also, the Maasai people of Kenya were also pastoralists who rely on, cattle, sheep, and goats for their livelihood. But again, droughts, conflicts, they've been sort of looking more at plant-based diets. But the really one of the big ones though is like the people that live in the cold, right? So like you have the Sami people of Scandinavia. They're a nomadic indigenous group who traditionally herded reindeer. But yeah, because of climate change, habitat loss, resource extraction, which is affecting their traditional way of life, they're starting to explore veganism. So it can be for everybody while you can keep your culture. You know, also the Inuits in the Arctic, they were people that hunted whales for food, but climate change is causing sea ices to melt earlier and later in the year, making it sort of difficult to hunt whales. And so they're also exploring alternative food sources and going vegan, you know. And so it's happened before. It even can be revolutionary in the you know, the Zapatista movement in Mexico, which was a movement where it was anti-government, taking back the land, this far left-wing sort of communist ideology. The Zapatistas were revolutionary indigenous people that started a movement, and this was like in the 90s, and they embraced a philosophy they called Viva Saludable, which means healthy living in Spanish. And it includes a commitment to eating a plant-based diet. And they believe that a vegan diet is healthier, more sustainable, and more ethical than a traditional omnivore diet. And that's coming from some very cool revolutionaries.
Wow, you're very clued up on the topic, Chris.
I did my homework. I like the format. So I was like, oh, let's do this talk. Yeah, ask me a question.
No.
So on you, your question is, what is the correlation here? And there's always this misconception that being vegan and being masculine, you can't be both or whatever, you know, like you have to be a man to eat meat or something. What do you got to say about this whole idea?
It's probably the one that baffles me the most because if there's an argument where, for instance, you know, just petty arguments, you know, why do you eat fake meats and, you need cholesterol these are like, there is some grounds to some arguments. You know, there is some legs, and you can and also if there's no legs, I can still understand why people would say what they say. You know, I can understand people saying, you know, even the protein myth. You know, where do you get your protein? Because you do require to do a little bit more research to get the protein. So I understand where that comes from. It's not entirely true, but I understand it. When it comes to masculinity, you know, we're not talking to people who are like fighting off lions or, you know, biting tigers around the neck and ripping them around and things like that. We're talking about people who go to the supermarket with their trolley, pick up a bit of meat, check the price, excuse me, and and pay for it, go home, unpack it, cook it, and then claim to be more masculine than those who don't do that. So, and these animals are not the type of animals that can fight back either. So, you know, you're talking of cows. I mean, what's a cow going to do? What's a pig going to do? You know what I mean? These animals are so soft, and I was going to say stupid. Then they're not even stupid. But to think that you're masculine for doing that, even if people were not doing that, and it was, you know, 200 years ago, and they had farms themselves and they were killing them themselves, that still does not make you masculine. So going to the grocery store and buying these products, and then calling people who don't buy the products feminine, just blows my head. I don't understand. Yeah, we live in the softest generation ever. People are so emotional, yet claim to be like Vikings. And one thing I'm going to start doing is offering people to act like a Viking in other ways. You know, come on, then. So you're masculine, you're violent, you're barbaric. Let's have a sword fight. Do you know what I mean? Get your sword out. Do you know what I mean? Let's go and invade another country. You're not going to do it, man. So less of the big man attitude. You're not masculine. You could be masculine, but it doesn't make you masculine, I'm afraid.
Yeah. Yeah. I would say masculinity could really encompass something a little bit more than just going to the grocery store and picking up some meat and putting it through the checkout. Maybe it should be more about confidence and compassion. I find that people that are confident truly are more patient and more, you know, they get along better with people who they are lesser than them. And if you really think that animals are your lessers, then you should have the confidence and the grace to treat them with respect instead of treating them like, you know,
Mm.
you know,
I probably
like,
linked masculinity to violence. Then I probably shouldn't have done, but they pretend that it's down that path. You know what I mean? So, but yeah, I know what you
right,
mean. I
right.
mean, you know, you as you know, a masculine figure, a family figure. You want to be compassionate. You want to be loving. You want to be caring. You want to be providing of your family, and especially looking after the vulnerable. Do you know what I mean? So whether it's an old lady or a child or a cat or whatever, man, anyone that is less able than you should be, you know, caring for. You should be looking after anyone who is weaker or more disabled than you. So it makes no sense to be that way and then be the total opposite to 5 animals and then claiming that the ones who are not caring for those 5 animals, sorry, who are caring for those 5 animals, are not as masculine. It just doesn't make sense.
Yeah. Lots of arguments in the realm of veganism that meat eaters come up with that don't make sense.
Yeah.
Yeah. And masculinity, it needs to be redefined because it's a lot of what it represents is not useful in modern society. We need to redefine what masculinity is and make it more useful so that it's not just about, you know, random acts of violence and stuff like that.
Yeah.
83% of all murders are done by men, you know.
Mm.
And rape, I think, is even higher than that. It's just men and the way that they are. It could use a repolishing and maybe a rethinking. All right.
Yeah.
All right. Go ahead. Ask me one.
Right then. Being in the food industry, I wanted to ask myself this question, but because oh man, vegan diets are more expensive. Vegan food costs a lot. You need to be a upper class white Western man. I've heard about the white
Yeah.
racist thing with the white
That's
vegan.
a
That's
part
just
of it.
ridiculous. But yeah,
Vegans, it's racist to be vegan.
yeah, man.
So I talked to a guy the other day and he was from Iraq and I said, you should go vegan and stuff. And he said, well, vegan food hasn't really come here yet. And I said, buddy, vegan food's already there. It's on the shelf. It's beans and rice, and it always will be the most premium, most luxurious vegan food. Is some kind of lentil, legume, nut, bean, tofu, something like this, and you mix it with a carbohydrate to get a full amino acid profile. It's one of the cheapest things that you can find. It's available all over the world. It's staple in places like Africa. So to say that vegan diets are more expensive somehow or elitist or only for rich people who have nutritionists, which I've heard people say that, to tie it all together, a study did happen by the Physicians Committee responsible for medicine. They found that low-fat vegan food could actually save shoppers about 16% on their grocery bill, which equals about $500 a year. And they studied, you know, the cost of the vegan diet compared to the standard American diet that includes meat, dairy, and other animal products. And now you're probably saying, well, you know, that sounds like a bunch of numbers. Okay, there's another study by Oxford University. Now, there's a prestigious place to get a study done. And it found that vegan diets were most affordable and reduced food costs by up to 1/3 compared to omnivorous diets. And that's omnivorous diets, not American diets. The study compared the cost of 7 sustainable diets, including vegan, vegetarian, pescatarian, flexitarian, and they tested people in 150 countries. So it's just false. The idea that vegan diets are somehow more expensive or only for rich people, it's false. And there's more studies too that talk about it. But when you go to the grocery store, just use your eyes and see that beans are cheaper than the meat. And that's all you really need to know. Don't, like we talked about before, don't spring for the fake stuff right away. Go for the whole food, plant-based stuff. And, you know, make it unhealthy at home. Cook your own food. But But yeah, so the thing is also that needs to be said is meat is subsidized by the government, and it's subsidized with taxpayer money. And one of the reasons why meat is as cheap as it is, I know that meat is actually more expensive than beans, but meat would be even more expensive if taxpayers stopped subsidizing it with their money. And the reason why it's subsidized is because it is the most inefficient way to get protein. We're talking about resource extraction, and it just uses so much water, land, time, grain, oil, fuel for the tractors, just to produce a small amount of meat. It is inefficient, and so that's why we need the government to pay for it when we could just be buying beans.
Yeah, I'm not sure how labor intensive these new vegan products are compared to that, but like you said, the labor that goes into it, it's just crazy, man. My brother came up with a good point not long back, and he said, if you were in London 2 hours away, and you said, oh, I'm going to bring you a sandwich, and you'd be like, you're going to drive all this way to bring me a sandwich that's going to last for 2 minutes? It's not worth it, you know what I mean? Just keep the sandwich, you know what I mean? I'm going to make you a sandwich. How are you going to do it? I'm going to create a farm. I'm going to forcefully impregnate pigs, and then I'm going to lock them in cages, and then I'm going to pump them with antibiotics and fattening liquids, and then I'm going to make them have babies, and then I'm going to chop their heads off, and then I'm going to chop them into pieces and ship them around the world just for a sandwich. I think I'll skip it, mate. I'll just have a tofu bap, you know what I mean? Mad. Mad.
We always joke that you can go inside a tofu factory and you're allowed to film inside the tofu factory, but if you try to bring a camera inside of a slaughterhouse, it's against the law.
Mad.
So that
it
tells you everything you need to know.
Is that a law in the US? Or is it everywhere?
It's called, these laws that stop people from filming inside of slaughterhouses are called ag-gag laws, agricultural gag orders, where they make it illegal to film in there because the people who run those companies are quite sure if people saw the footage inside the slaughterhouse, they would be appalled. And so they keep what happens in these places secret.
Yeah.
Because there is a chance that somebody could empathize with the animals being killed and go vegetarian, or dare I say, go vegan.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, there was an undercover one in Australia a month or two back, and it was quite horrific, man. It was terrible. But thanks to these people that are doing the work, man, they're getting in. I can see myself doing that actually at one point, sneaking in and getting the camera out, man, because I've even heard stories where people go, oh, it's all doctored footage and it's not real, and 99% of people care for the animals, and it's just like, they had to search for 10 years to find this one little, and I'm like, no, man, the internet is full of this bullshit, man. Do you know what I mean? It's full.
Jesus Christ. How could you, this is like flat earther stuff when you can look at the hours and hours. How do you think the animal is slaughtered? It's not pretty.
Yeah.
Pigs in gas chambers. It's real. It's not like, you might as well deny the Holocaust if you're going to go to that length to close your eyes and bury your head in the sand. So, all right. So here's the next question. Our ancestors have always done it. That's what the argument, right? The meat eaters say, well, cavemen did it. Why we've always done it. I'm a carnivore. They say stupid shit like, I got fangs. That means I'm a carnivore. And that's, and what do you got to say about people that say our ancestors have always done it as an excuse?
But you know what? I'm not really too clued up on history at all. I'm not really, a history enthusiast, but I know that we've ate our own feces. I know that we've drank our own piss. I know that we've invaded countries, especially the British. I won't talk about that. I know that we've raped. I know that people have had 10 wives. I know that some people have killed their children because they're deformed. I know that our ancestors used to live in caves and didn't have central heating. I know that our ancestors used to eat humans. The list is endless, you know what I mean? And I'm not even, like I say, very clued up on what really went on. So I've said this to someone before. I said, why is it that you want to eradicate all aspects of your ancestors' behavior apart from the one that gives you a little bit of pleasure? Why is that the only one? Because you can no longer go down the route of, we need it. It's biologically, the human body needs it, because that's proven time and time again not to not be true. So you can't even go down that route. So, why is it the only one? It's that, laws have come into place to stop a lot of shit going on, apart from this one where just because you're hungry, you think that should stay. And if you want to behave like your ancestors, then what would you do if your country got invaded now, by 7,000 Vikings? Are you gonna pick up an axe, or are you gonna run for the hills, or what? So at what point do you stop behaving like our violent ancestors? You know what I mean? And unfortunately, when you're not the victim, because if you swap places with these animals, you definitely would want to eradicate that as well. But when you're not the victim, people don't care, do they? It's quite fascinating, really, that they only want to get rid of the violent aspects where they would be safe. You know what I mean? So it's quite ridiculous.
Yeah, that's what they call a hypocrisy, right? When
Absolutely.
you say ancestors have always done it, but then again, you're walking around with an iPhone in your pocket, eating processed potato chips, and scooting around in your luxury automobile. You are so far removed from what your ancestors were, that to say that you want to keep doing what they did, which like you said, we used to shit in buckets and throw it out the window. It doesn't mean that what the other stuff we did during that time was smart either. I mean, it's time to question and reform and kind of hit the reset button on a lot of old customs and traditions.
Oh man, it's crazy. It's like, should we get an Uber Eats? Let's order a pizza. Hang on a sec. Granddad. Yeah, no, he didn't used to use Uber Eats. You can't do that. Oh shit, I can't order a pizza now. Fucking hell. Put the heating on. I'm cold. Do you know what I mean? No, you can't do that. It's like, what? It's not the same anymore, is it? It's completely different. Yeah, it's nuts. Crazy.
And by the way, when it comes to ancestors, saying that if you're a meat eater, that my ancestors always ate meat, all the cavemen ate meat, so that's okay. Well, I don't know.
They ate nuts as well. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah,
our ancestors
they were actually omnivores.
Yeah.
The thing is that your closest ancestors, the bonobos and the chimps, guess what? They're plant-based. They eat about 1% meat, so forget about it.
Yeah. I've got one for you, Chris.
All right. Sock it to me.
Cheese. Let's talk about cheese.
Let's talk about cheese, baby.
Is
a lot. Go ahead.
We could go down the vegetarian route, or we could say, is cheese, is dairy, is a vegetarian right in saying they're doing something moral by not eating cheese? In my opinion, dairy is a lot worse than the meat industry. I would rather be chopped up into pieces than to be kept in a cage and you know what. Cheese, man.
Cheese. Well, here we go. The big deal about cheese, a lot of people who aren't vegan will say, well, I don't eat meat, but I like cheese. I can't give up cheese. I love cheese, and I don't see what the problem is ethically with cheese. I mean, cows make milk. They're going to make it no matter what. So I get up and I steal a little bit and I have some. What's the ethical problem with cheese? Well, first of all, dairy cows are subjected to a number of cruel things like forced impregnation. They then get separated from their calves. They have painful procedures like dehorning and tail docking. They're treated like commodities, basically. And when they have a kid, the kid is taken away from them in this very brutal manner, and they go on to either a veal farm or they get killed right there. And a lot of times you'll have these veal farms that there's about, tens of thousands of of dog houses out in the sun that are housing veal that is going to be slaughtered. So when you eat dairy, you are actually participating in the slaughter of baby cows, because if the mother needs to get pregnant and give the milk, that's what happens. That's where she gets milk from. Mothers give milk when they have children. Well, where's the child? He's MIA. He's turned into schnitzel. So that's the ethical considerations in that regard. Now, the production of cheese and dairy products is highly inefficient, and it also requires land and water and other resources to produce, a very small amount of food. It's very inefficient in this way. And that's unethical by itself, because we're not taking care. We're not being smart. We're not working smarter. We're just working harder. And that we need to think before we are just mindlessly productive like this. And so it's unethical in that way. The other ways it's unethical is, it's emitting tons of CO2 into the atmosphere. Animal agriculture is responsible for tons of emissions, some very significant amount. And if we're polluting the atmosphere, we're being unethical and immoral to people in the future, and also wildlife. And then there's this whole aspect, well, how you treat yourself, isn't that a moral issue? How is eating cheese actually immoral and unethical to yourself? Well, if we know that consuming dairy products has been linked to a number of health problems, including heart disease, stroke, type 2 diabetes, and other types of cancer, and they're high in saturated fat and cholesterol, then surely you're treating yourself in an unethical and immoral way. So there's all these things that sort of are unethical about cheese that you don't really see right away until you actually think about it. And the other thing is, for a long time anyway, a lot of hard cheese was made with the rennet, and they use the lining of a cow's stomach. So you had to actually, to make Parmesan, you had to actually use a cow's stomach and push, milk and stuff through through this lining of the stomach, because that's what filters these important compounds in milk to make cheese. And so it's cheese. It's not as nice as you think it is.
Yeah, I'd love to see what would happen if you, like you said earlier about the glass walls in the slaughterhouse. The cameras in the
Yeah, yeah,
slaughterhouse, and if people actually, if you walked into a pizza shop, a pizza takeaway, and they had the footage on the screens, you know what I mean, and the big metal, what do you call them, on the on the teats and stuff, and they're sucking it out, and we shouldn't laugh really, because it's cruelty, man. It's disgusting, and
yeah,
there's
yeah.
veins popping out, and then you've got
I
all the,
only laugh to keep from crying.
yeah, me too, man. I had a little giggle. The mastitis, is it? This is, what is it? The mastitis, the
Yeah.
infections they get and
In
all that, and it ends up with the pus, and the pus comes. Oh, it's
Yeah.
disgusting, man. Just
Oh, the udders get totally infected from overproducing milk, especially when they're given any kind of hormone, stimulation. Like sometimes they were given bovine growth hormone in the 90s and stuff, and I think that some of them still do, even though that there has been no scientific evidence that shows that they actually produce more milk, like slightly more milk, but you up the chance of having pus in the milk and having the nipples become all, you get elephantitis of the udders, and it's just mastitis is an ugly thing, and it's the udders they're damaged forever, and not good,
yeah.
not pleasant thing to have in your milk. A lot of pus.
Hmm. It's yeah. I think cheese is. I've found that cheese is more addictive than meat. I've heard a lot of people say, yeah, especially vegetarians, I can give up meat, but I can't give up cheese. I just don't
Yeah,
see how you can't give up cheese. I
yeah.
eat the substitutes, you
Well,
know what I mean? But I eat the substitutes. The substitutes are not as good. I don't care. If the substitutes didn't exist, I still wouldn't eat it. You know what I mean? I just wouldn't. It's just gone. You know what I mean? Eggs. Oh, I couldn't live
yeah,
without eggs. I need eggs. What do you mean you need eggs?
right.
You need oxygen and water, man. That's it. And a couple of greens, bit of lettuce, you'll be fine. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, yeah. You got that. That's all you need. You need to redefine what you need, people. Think about it deeply, because by the time that I'm full, I'm so glad that I didn't hurt somebody.
Mm. Yeah.
You know, by the time my stomach's full, I'm glad that I didn't say, "Oh yeah," give in to my impulse to say, "I want blood and on my tongue. I want the feel." You know, I was smart enough to poke down some beans and some rice and some avocados or some whatever lime juice, put a little lime on it, cilantro. Boom! You didn't have to kill anybody. Congratulations.
Mm. Yeah, yeah, that's another thing, isn't it?
So
It's the impulsivity to eat and the addiction to food. I'm dying for some cheese. I need some meat. You just need some food, man. And then once you've eaten, you're not hungry anymore. You're not going to crave it. Do you know what I mean? It's
right, right.
simple as that, isn't
It's
it?
wild. Yeah. And so I think it's the flavors that people are really fighting us on when they say, oh, vegan diets are for rich people, vegan diets don't work, vegan diets are unhealthy, blah, 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 blah. They say anything they can say because they don't take away the thing that's giving them that pleasure.
Mm,
That's the thing that's most important to them. And they're afraid that if they change, their entire world will collapse. And it's just not true.
mm,
Going vegan is one of the easiest things you can do.
mm,
And it's to this day one of my proudest accomplishments was being brave enough to try it because I was just as skeptical as everybody else when I first went vegan.
mm,
And I was always thin, so don't give me that shit. I've always looked like this. My grandfather was this skinny. Um, you know,
mm,
there's plenty of buff vegans out there.
mm,
There's lists of star tennis players, star bodybuilders, star UFC fighters that are vegan.
mm.
So
Yeah. There's skinny meat eaters. There's skinny vegans, man. There's fat vegans. There's fat meat eaters, and that's just as
yeah,
simple as that, isn't it? And you still get the anemic comments and the weak comments, and I reply,
I tried
can I
to.
give proof of this? And then they disappear. Okay, I'm not weak. I'm not skinny. You know what I mean? Nothing against skinny people. It's just
Yeah,
fact, isn't it? It is what it is, and physical proof isn't enough. And I don't know why.
yeah. Invite him. I know you're what boxer, kickboxer. Invite him down to the studio one day and clean their clock real good one time, and then see what they got to say.
A sword fight's better, man. It's got to be the sword fight. 99.9% will turn down a sword fight, but still act like a
I
Viking.
like, yeah,
Chris,
and go buy your food and packages. Yeah, go ahead.
I saw a comment relating to babies and animals. I think we spoke about this as well. What's the difference between killing babies and animals?
Well, that's a hard one, right? Because people always want to protect baby infants and fetuses and stuff like that and say, oh, that's the most precious thing in the world. We can't throw away any abortions. We have to, every child is sacred. And for a lot of people, babies and infants are the symbol of everything innocent and pure in the world. But at the same time, we go along and we murder baby animals. Like I was just talking about, we'll kill baby veal, hammer them flat, put breadcrumbs on them, and stick them in a deep fryer and eat them. These were babies, somebody's infant children that we have hammered flat and double broiled. There are totally cognitive dissonant issues with the way we're thinking on this, right? This is a completely arbitrary thing. So the argument is baby animals versus baby infants, baby humans. What's the difference here? Well, from a biological point of view, nothing. The biological mechanisms that underlie suffering are the same in humans and animals. Both humans and animals have a nervous system, okay? They can process pain and other forms of distress. They cry, they love, they grieve, they play, they jump, they express, sorrow. Both humans and animals release stress hormones when they're in pain or in fear. Both human and animals have the capacity to also learn from painful experiences. So they experience the world in the same way we do. And so their pain is the same. The fact that we've put this distinction between it and said, well, no, but they're different. Their suffering is different. It's completely egocentric. It's human centric. We made it up. It's completely arbitrary. We made it up because it's the feel good story of the year for human beings that we're somehow above and beyond animals. It's not true. It was just made up. There are some differences in the way that humans and animals experience suffering. Sure, humans have a more complex understanding of the world than animals. That's why we suffer in more complex
And we
ways.
still don't know shit.
Have We worry about the future. We worry about the past. That's something that's distinctly human that prolongs the intensity of our suffering. You know what I mean? But humans have this ability and this awareness more than animals, um, where we are susceptible to loneliness and isolation and despair. But that should really lead us to be, stewards of the animals and look out for them. The fact that we are more advanced in some way, that we can think in a different way than animals, doesn't that give us a responsibility if we think we're smarter than them to look out for them? So I would argue that killing baby humans and killing baby animals is exactly the same. You're sticking your, knife into a baby who just was born, who has a nervous system, who is basically made out of meat, who has two goo-goo eyes and a little mouth and breathes oxygen and has a spinal cord, just like you do. Okay.
Yeah, yeah, and then they'd say, well, if a house was on fire, would you save the baby or the dog? I'd save the baby, but I still wouldn't kill the dog. Do you know what I mean? For me, if it was a dog or a cat, I'd save the dog. Don't ask why, I just would. I still wouldn't kill the cat. You know what I mean? So it's
That's that's the hardest thing. If you run into a burning building, and should you save the baby, the dog, or the cat, and you can only save one, then you put yourself in a position to answer some very hard questions in the realm of utilitarianism. Like, what am I going to do? It's the trolley problem, right? If there's your mom's on one railroad track and your girlfriend's on the other railroad track, and you're going to kill one of them. Which one is it going to be? Everybody's got their personal bias. Dogs are probably the thing that I'm going to save. But again, if you don't save the baby, that's illegal, so you'll get in a lot of trouble. But and most people will save the baby because we do stick to our own kind, whether or not we like to admit it or not. We like to stick with our own kind. Everybody that's outside of our tribe, well, them, they don't matter. The people who are the closest to me that look the same, those are the people that I want to care about. So in the case of running into the burning building, yeah, I'd probably save the thing that I love the most, which is the dog.
But then you could say, well, what if the human was an absolute bellend, and then you've got a puppy? I'd save the puppy. Maybe not just a bellend, but maybe if the human was an absolute scumbag, a murderer, I don't give a shit, man. I'm saving the dog. You know what I mean? So it's not always set in stone.
And depending on how much life is ahead of the person, you need to decide these on a case by case basis. Trying to get a general rule of thumb for who to kill is not a good idea. Just wait until the house is on fire, then decide. How about that?
Yeah. But in a nutshell, the capacity for all living beings, well, especially mammals that we kill and humans, is relatively the same. We feel the same pain. It's unnecessary. There's no need to do it.
Okay. An ethical slaughter is not a real thing. No matter what you do, you're killing them. So, all right. So the last question I got was for you. And that is, why are some people always talking about how vegans are brainwashing, and then at the same time they're calling us a cult or calling us a sort of religion? Why do you find offense to this?
I find it. This is the topic that I find most fascinating with humans is the brainwashing thing, because someone said before. Funnily enough, I posted something the other day, and I posted a meme, and it was a picture of a woman screaming, "Who are you to tell me what to eat?" to the vegan. The vegan replies, or in this case, a little kitty cat, "You literally eat what you were told to eat." So how many times have you heard someone say, "Oh, who are you to tell me, to force your beliefs on me," when literally you were told what to eat and you eat it? You didn't make your own mind up, you know what I mean? This is why you frown upon people in Korea and China for boiling dogs, because no one told you to do that. So vegans actually have broken the mold and stepped back from the conditioning and said, look, I'm not eating that, or that, regardless of what anyone has told me. So it's actually non-vegans that are brainwashed, just as they would look at another culture and say they're brainwashed for eating tarantulas or horses or, fucking all of the weird shit that people eat. And it's completely the opposite of what they're trying to say. So it's just nuts. And the religion and the cult thing, look, religion is choosing to believe in something you cannot see. And veganism is choosing not to believe in something that you can see. So again, the religion thing, it's actually the atheism of religion. It's stepping back and not listening to what you've been told. We're in the very, very small percentage here of people who have stepped out and gone, I'm not doing that, regardless of what my culture taught me to do. So yeah, and also if an intelligent if a group of aliens landed on Earth and saw someone with a farm impregnating cows and stealing their breast milk, I'm sure that they would think that was more of a cult than it was to not partake in it. Do you know what I mean? So, done. I'm out.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. I mean, comparing us to a religion is saying very little. I mean, you said it best. It's believing what you can't see. Like, if you are hiding from the reality of what happens in slaughterhouses and eating animal carcasses, you are following the status quo, my friend. And when it comes to not, what diets are being pushed on us, when there's a McDonald's on every corner and meat is readily available in almost every restaurant you go to, when vegans only make up 1% of the population, we're the ones that are going outside the normal here. We're the one questioning authority here. We're the punk rock answer to your status quo following ways. You're a bootlicker. You're following exactly the diet that they tell you to have. We're the ones who are trying to do it better, more thoughtful, with more, ethical and sustainable grounding. And as long as it's able to be done, which we're sitting here alive after eating vegan food for however long, we're alive, it can be done, then why aren't you? That's the real question. I guess everybody out there has to ask themselves, why are you not vegan already? I'd love to hear your excuses. Put them in the comments.
Quality, yeah, quality. The brainwashing thing really is fascinating for me. Shout out to Thomas Anonymous, who is writing a speech on brainwashing as we speak. He's going to be doing a speech very soon. I can't wait for that one. It's a topic that fascinates me. I'd love to look into the psychology behind it eventually and work out what the hell is going on with how the mind works and why we're just programmed to say yes to things. It's especially when it goes against your core moral beliefs. You know what I mean? It really is fascinating.
Yeah, I'm going to recommend you, and I'll send you a link to a documentary called "The Century of the Self," and it covers the story of a man called Edward Bernays, who was the nephew of the great psychologist Sigmund Freud. Well, Edward Bernays was his nephew. He lived in America. He was the one that convinced women in America in the 1920s to smoke cigarettes for the first time by convincing them that they were torches of freedom for women's liberation. If you smoke cigarettes, you're, becoming independent. You have equality just like the man. And he did it on behalf of cigarette companies. So there's a very long documentary series, I think, that you could see sort of the brainwashing, how it works and how it's deployed in modern society. It's one of the most incredible and egregious and scary and disgusting things that happens to humans, that humans do to other humans, is tricking them into believing something with, false intentions or malicious intentions. So check out that video, everybody. But so what do you say? We sign off? Shout outs?
Yeah, man.
Anybody you want to shout out to?
Yeah. Not in particular, mate. I think who. Foolproof Mastery, Patrick. We're going on Tuesday, man. We're doing a YouTube comment destroying session. That should be fun. And he's on the grow, man. Patrick. He's been doing some good debunking work and some myth busting, which is going Good to see. He's just like you, man. When I see a video, I just like it. I don't even have to watch it before I can like it, man, because I know what's coming.
Yeah.
I agree with it all.
Yeah. Push it. Tell him I said hi and have me on his show sometime. I'd love to keep pushing this message. But we're an army and we're coming for all you meat eaters. So you better lock your doors. Lock your doors. Sleep with one eye open, gripping your pillow tight, because we're coming for you.
Get a lock on your fridge. Been good, Chris. Thank
All
you,
right.
man.
Well, let's sign up.
I'll gather some more ridiculous comments from YouTube, and we'll go again, man, and we can attack it from a different angle.
We'll be back next week, people. So just be prepared, and we'll sign off to everybody right now. But let's talk afterwards, okay?
Cheers, Chris.